Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and click the like button, and if you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that before you leave the channel. So today's video, you're going to see me do a lot of reading. Carnival has provided a COVID-19 update and policy on their website. So I decided that I wanted to do a vlog on it. And you will see me read this verbatim because I don't want to misquote anything that they are now setting in stone. Found one of my old cruising t-shirts. It's wrinkled, but I felt like it was a need to wear it today because hopefully things will change soon. So here we go. So Carnival COVID-19 policies and procedures. It says the following policies and procedures have been developed based on guidance and directives from health authorities, governments in the U.S. and other countries, including the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, which is the CDC, and additional advice and medical and public health experts. It says all guests must read and comply with these policies and procedures at all times as specified. The policies and procedures are subject to change without notice due to evolving recommendations, requirements, and situational need with regard to COVID-19. Guests must familiarize themselves with the policies and procedures in effect at the time of embarkation and any follow-up communications and updates provided. All right. Now, it says all guests are required to provide any screening information requested by Carnival that may be related to COVID-19, including but not limited to health, travel, and COVID-19 exposure and testing history. If requested during the booking process, guests must read and familiarize themselves with the ticket contract and the acknowledgement and acceptance of risk policies and procedures for COVID-19. Now, check-in. It says only booked guests are permitted to enter the terminal and boarding area. Visitors are not permitted, in these locations at any time. All guests must complete their online check-in and select an arrival appointment no later than midnight Eastern Time prior to their sailing date. Guests must arrive within their selected time to facilitate physical distancing during check-in and boarding process. Guests arriving earlier than their scheduled time will not be allowed to enter the terminal until the time of their arrival appointment. This also applies to diamond, platinum, and casino guests. So, how it used to be if you showed up to the port early, like let's say you picked a 12:30 check-in time and you so happen to get there at 11:30, no more getting on early. So if you know you're one that wants to get on the ship early, try to get there earlier time. Okay. Now it says testing. As a part of our efforts to keep our guests safe and healthy, every guest 2 years of age or older joining a ship, regardless of method of travel to the ship, is required to take a SARS-CoV-2 test, which is the COVID-19 test, between 5 days and 24 hours prior to the date of embarkation and must receive a negative result. No guests to travel to the terminal if the test result is positive. Guests must provide the original document confirming a negative test result that is legible, identifies the approved and licensed testing entity, sample collection date and type of test, and identify of the tested individual. Carnival reserves the right to reject any test result that does not meet these requirements. Per our privacy notice, test results will be shared only with Carnival personnel and or contractually engaged third parties to facilitate our screening and mitigation protocols or as required by health authorities. Carnival may perform additional testing at the terminal or on board the vessel. Any guest who fails to provide the required documentation or testing at the terminal or on board will be denied boarding or disembark, and no refund or credit will be issued. So, if you have a problem with getting tested, or you have a problem with getting tested in the port, the embarkation port, or any time on the ship, you are not in compliance. Okay, continued under testing. If at any time within 14 days prior to embarkation or at any time during the cruise, a guest tests positive for COVID-19, exhibits signs or symptoms of COVID-19, has had close contact with a person confirmed or suspected of having COVID-19, or Carnival otherwise determines in its sole discretion that guest is unfit to board due to the risk of communicable illness, guests shall be subject to denial of boarding, denial of reboarding, quarantine, isolation, and or disembarkation. Under these circumstances, unless the guest has failed or refused to comply with these policies and procedures, they will be provided with a future cruise credit. Now, here's the tricky part with the COVID testing. For those who have tested positive, they say that there is a strong possibility that you can test, I believe, up to 3 to 6 months after having COVID. You can still test positive because the virus is still in your system. Now, this is from a healthcare standpoint for me working at the hospital. So that's going to be the tricky part. You might be completely free of COVID, no symptoms, anything like that. You haven't been around anybody else that's tested positive, but because it's still lingering in your system, you may still test positive. All right, so on to the next thing, health screening. Carnival has the right to screen any guest to facilitate compliance with its health and safety protocols. All guests will be required to complete a health questionnaire beginning 72 hours before the date of embarkation to identify any symptoms consistent with COVID-19 or other infectious diseases. Signs and symptoms of COVID-19, and guests will be required to reconfirm their responses at time of check-in. All guests will have their temperature taken as a part of the boarding process. It says every guest is required to provide truthful, accurate, and complete responses to all health screening questions for their own safety, that of their traveling companions, and the safeties of others. Identification of symptoms or potential exposures does not automatically result in denial of boarding. If a guest discloses symptoms of COVID-19 or any other communicable disease or close contact with an individual with confirmed or suspected infection, or if they have a fever, guests will undergo a secondary screening by medical personnel to determine whether they may board the ship. So, from this, what I gather, they're going to have medical personnel during the boarding process, in addition to what we're used to with embarkation. It says any guest who refuses to be tested, screened, or follow these Carnival COVID-19 policies and procedures will be denied boarding, and no refund will be issued or a credit will be issued. Any medical information obtained from guests will only be shared with Carnival personnel and contractually engaged third parties. Okay, we already talked about this. Let's see. What else? Regardless of age, the CDC has defined certain individuals with underlying chronic medical conditions who are or may be at increased risk of severe illness from the virus that causes COVID-19. It says, among adults, the risk for severe illness from COVID-19 increases with advancing age. All guests, but especially those with increased risk as identified by the CDC, should consult with their own physician about their own risk factors and tolerance. Carnival strongly encourages guests to review the most updated CDC guidance regarding these conditions prior to booking their cruise. All guests must assess their individual risk and fully understand the safety precautions detailed in this document. So again, it says that guests may be required to undergo at least daily temperature checks and must submit to any requested medical screening during the cruise. Temperature checks may also be conducted prior to disembarking at the port of call before participating in certain onboard activities. It says every guest has an important duty to immediately report any symptoms consistent with COVID-19 to the ship's medical personnel. Failure to do so jeopardizes individual health and that of those on board and others ashore. It talks about hand hygiene. I'm not going to read that verbatim. Everybody should know, wash your hands. Here's a new thing, which some other channels have talked about already, face masks. In our continuing effort to keep our guests safe and healthy, all guests over the age of 2 will be required to wear a mask when indoors, except when inside their own stateroom, while eating and drinking, seating at a table, and when using cardio equipment at the gym, and physical distancing is maintained. So basically the same thing that we're doing now. When you're indoors or even when you're outdoors and social distancing is not permissible, you got to wear a mask. This is just the sign of the times that we're in right now. and it's going to be a requirement. It's now a federal law to not wear a mask on public transportation. So it does say that gaiters and bandanas are not allowed to be considered a mask. Face shields are permitted when used with a mask. So you can't just wear a face shield. You have to wear a face shield and a mask. And it says a limited supply of masks will be available in staterooms after boarding. So, of course, you want to make sure that you bring your own. Do not depend on Carnival to provide you all of your masks. Okay, physical distancing. In our effort to maintain physical distancing on our ships, access to public spaces will be limited and venues and activities will operate at reduced capacity. We may use a reservation system for our public areas such as pools, gyms, casinos, restaurants, bars, and entertainment. Our physical distancing protocols will be in accordance with the CDC's recommendation, which is defined as staying at least 6 feet apart from other people who are not the guest cruise companions, which is family or immediate travel group. So, Royal Caribbean does this a lot already, where you have to make reservations to go certain places. And then we already know that for right now, cruises are selling at a minimum capacity anyway. So social distancing will be in full effect. If you know that there's a show or something that you want to see and they start using the reservation system, make your reservations ahead of time. It says all guests are required to provide identifying information and information about certain activities engaged in during the cruise so Carnival can perform contact tracing in the event any person on board is suspected or confirmed to have COVID-19. Various location tracking technologies may be used to assist in the collection of contact tracing information, such as wearables, video surveillance, transaction data, and photographs taken during the cruise. So that's part of the reservation system so they can keep track of who you are around. Shore excursions. Now, if you watched my video a little while ago where I said my prediction of what cruising would look like in the immediate future, one of mine are correct. To help limit potential exposure and or transmission of communities at destinations during the initial return to sailing, guests will only be allowed to participate in excursions or activities executed and escorted by vetted tour operators who maintain Carnival's level of COVID-19 controls. Shoreside visits may also be limited to port areas that have no public access. Self-exploration or non-Carnival sponsored excursions will not be permitted. This policy applies to all sailing scheduled during the declared public health emergency involving COVID-19. So basically, in short, and you can read all of this, I'm not going to read everything completely verbatim. If you know you want to do something special, book a Carnival shore excursion because they know these are trusted companies and partners. And again, they know who you're going to be around because they know who booked the excursion. So there's some other acceptance of risks. And like I said, there's a new acknowledgement and acceptance of risk policies and procedures for COVID-19 that you'll have to read when you accept your ticket contract. But you all can read this on your own. It is publicly located under COVID-19 legal notices, and it has policies and procedures. So based off of this, this was posted in a lot of the Facebook Carnival groups last night. That's how I found out that this information was posted on the website. A ton of people on Facebook are like, that feels like your vacation is controlled, and they will not cruise while these rules and these procedures are in effect. They feel that their vacation will be controlled, and they have no say-so in how they enjoy their cruise. So my question to my cruisers on the channel, or anyone that watches the video, what are your thoughts on it? Will you still cruise while these procedures are in effect? Let me know in the comments down below. Personally, I do this all day, every day while being at work. I have to get screened every day to go to work. I have to answer a questionnaire every morning before I come into work. I have to get my temperature checked every morning before I can go to work. They have an electronic screening scanner where it takes my temperature and it also takes my picture to make sure that I am walking in the building with the mask. So this is nothing new. Now, the only thing I will not look forward to is going to have this nice glow like all here and here. And then when you come back, this part right here is just going to be light skin. That's the only negative downfall. But other than that, I'm ready to cruise. I'm not looking forward to taking a COVID test because the last one that I had was when I was in labor with Janelle. I don't know whether it was more painful with me because I was having contractions in the middle of getting tested. I know certain places now, in addition to the nasal swab, they're doing the mouth swab. So hopefully more options for that will be available. But I'm ready to cruise, whatever it takes. I'm excited already that they are limiting the capacity of the ships. And quite honestly, it sounds like a lot of people are going to be canceling anyway, which will make the ships a little bit smaller anyway. So whatever it takes to safely get us back to cruising and get us back to a new norm, I am all for it. So thanks so much for clicking on this video. I know it's a doozy and you just saw me reading 90% of the time, but I appreciate you clicking on this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Comment your thoughts below, and if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can see all the videos that I do later on. And until next time, bye.